The low hum of the aircraft's engines had barely settled into a steady rhythm when a sharp, shrill cry sliced through the cabin. It started as a whimper but quickly escalated into a full-throated wail that made passengers glance up from their magazines and in-flight screens. The plane, only 30 minutes into its long-haul journey, suddenly felt much smaller as the sound echoed off the narrow walls. In seat 3B, a man in a tailored navy blazer shifted uneasily, his face drawn with fatigue. To the casual observer he looked every bit the polished tycoon: silver cufflinks, an immaculate shirt, a watch that likely cost more than most people's cars. He was Oliver Grant, a tech entrepreneur whose name often appeared in glossy business magazines alongside headlines about billion-dollar deals. Tonight, though, none of that mattered. All that mattered was the tiny, squirming bundle in his arms, his 6-month-old daughter, Lily, whose distress seemed to have no end. Oliver rocked gently, his movements awkward but earnest. He whispered soothing nonsense, the kind of babble that used to make her giggle during quiet mornings at home. Nothing worked. The cries only grew louder, a piercing chorus that drew sighs and side-eye from passengers around him. A few travelers slid noise-canceling headphones over their ears. One woman pressed a pillow against the side of her head, muttering under her breath. A flight attendant approached with a sympathetic smile, offering warm water for a bottle. Oliver thanked her and tried, but Lily turned her face away, her tiny fists waving like flags of protest. He checked her diaper, dry. He shifted her position, no change. He bounced her gently, pacing the narrow aisle as much as the seatbelt sign allowed. Still, the wails continued. People often assumed that immense wealth made life easier, that money could buy instant solutions. But in this cramped cabin high above the Atlantic, Oliver felt powerless. He remembered nights when his late wife, Emily, had been the baby whisperer, calming Lily with a simple hum of an old lullaby. Emily had passed away only a few months earlier, leaving Oliver a single father still learning the rhythms of parenthood. The memory tightened his chest. He rubbed his daughter's back, hoping the warmth of his love might somehow translate into comfort. Across the aisle, conversations faltered. A businessman in a gray suit shot a pointed glance at his watch, while a young couple exchanged weary looks. A few rows back, someone groaned audibly. Oliver's cheeks burned, not from embarrassment alone but from helplessness. He had negotiated multi-million-dollar contracts under pressure, but nothing compared to the desperation of wanting to soothe his child and failing. The captain's calm voice crackled over the intercom with routine flight updates, but even that steady reassurance couldn't mask Lily's cries. The cabin seemed to pulse with her distress. Oliver tried to focus on the gentle rise and fall of the plane, hoping the motion might lull her, yet she only kicked and sobbed harder. He glanced toward the curtained first-class section where some passengers tried to pretend nothing was happening, their own comfort their main concern. He caught a few sympathetic eyes, parents who remembered their own long flights with infants, but most faces carried thinly veiled irritation. Oliver swallowed a knot of guilt. He wanted to apologize to everyone and to Lily at the same time. He whispered again, his voice low and rough, "It's okay, sweetheart. Daddy's here. We'll be all right." But the crying didn't stop. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Each sob felt like a tiny hammer against his heart. Oliver rocked side to side, gently patting her back. He considered asking the flight attendants for anything else, maybe a pacifier, maybe just advice, but he had already exhausted their suggestions. The air inside the cabin felt warmer, heavier. He loosened his collar and rubbed his temples. He was a man used to control, to solutions, yet here he sat powerless while his daughter's cries filled the night sky. Passengers shifted again, and Oliver avoided their eyes, retreating into a silent plea for a miracle, any miracle, that might bring his little girl peace. In seat 17A, halfway down the aisle and tucked against the window, a teenage girl sat perfectly still, as if movement might draw unwanted attention. Her name was Mia Thompson, a 17-year-old high school senior traveling alone for the first time. A paperback novel rested in her lap, though she hadn't turned a page in the last 20 minutes. Every rise and fall of the baby's desperate cries seemed to vibrate through her chest, drowning out the steady thrum of the engines. Mia was painfully shy, the kind of person who always chose the last row in class and rehearsed every sentence in her head before speaking aloud. Flying alone had already stretched her comfort zone. She'd practiced checking in, finding her gate, and stowing her bag, all without the reassuring presence of her mom or best friend. Now, as the baby's wails echoed through the cabin, she hugged her book tighter, willing herself to focus on the printed words. But the letters blurred. She knew what it was like to feel helpless. Her mind flashed back to summer evenings at her aunt's house, when her twin cousins, both toddlers then, would work themselves into fits of tears. Everyone else would panic, but Mia had always remembered something her grandmother taught her, a lullaby older than memory, passed through generations. A tune so soft it felt like a breeze on a warm night. Somehow, when she sang it, the twins would quiet, their breathing syncing with the gentle rhythm of her voice. The memory stirred now, along with a quiet certainty she couldn't explain. She glanced down the aisle. From this distance she could see the father's expensive blazer, the way he rocked the child with a frantic edge. Even through the dim cabin light she saw exhaustion etched in the set of his shoulders. He looked like someone who'd tried everything and was still failing. Mia's heart beat faster. Could she really help? The idea of standing up, of walking the length of the aisle with so many eyes on her, sent a tremor of panic through her. She imagined people staring, judging, maybe laughing if she failed. She almost buried herself back in the book. But then Lily's cry cracked in a way that made Mia's chest ache, raw and pleading. Something shifted inside her. Maybe it was empathy, maybe courage she didn't know she had. She unbuckled her seatbelt slowly, her palms damp. The overhead lights felt brighter, harsher, as she stepped into the aisle. Every footstep echoed like a drumbeat in her ears. A flight attendant paused, eyebrows raised, but Mia only offered a small nod and kept walking. When she reached the front section, Oliver looked up in surprise. Up close, Mia could see the dark circles under his eyes, the sheen of worry on his brow. He had the aura of someone important, but right now he just looked like a tired dad. "Excuse me," Mia said, her voice barely audible over the baby's cries. She cleared her throat and tried again, a little louder. "Hi, she hesitated, but forced the words out. "I babysit a lot. Sometimes I can help with crying babies. May I try?" For a moment Oliver simply stared, as if unsure he'd heard correctly. A stranger, an awkward teenage stranger, was offering to take his child. Under normal circumstances, he might have politely refused. But desperation outweighed hesitation. He gave a quick, almost imperceptible nod. Mia reached out carefully, her movements gentle and deliberate. Lily's tiny face was blotchy from crying, her fists trembling. "Hi there, sweetheart," Mia whispered, gathering the baby into her arms with surprising ease. She swayed instinctively, the way she had with her cousins. The baby squirmed, still hiccuping with leftover sobs. Then Mia began to hum. The melody was soft, lilting, almost like a secret shared between generations. A tune her grandmother had sung while shelling peas on summer nights. Mia closed her eyes and let the music flow, her voice low but steady. The effect was almost immediate. Lily's cries softened to whimpers, then to quiet little sighs. Her eyelids fluttered. The cabin around them seemed to hold its breath. Passengers leaned forward, stunned by the transformation. Even the flight attendants paused mid-step, their expressions shifting from concern to amazement. Mia kept humming, her heartbeat slowing to match the calm she projected, as if the song itself carried a kind of magic. Oliver watched, speechless, as his daughter's tiny body relaxed against this shy girl's shoulder. Relief washed over him in a warm wave, chasing away hours of tension. For the first time since takeoff, the cabin was wrapped in something close to peace. For a long, shimmering moment, the entire cabin seemed suspended in quiet wonder. The drone of the engines provided a soft backdrop as passengers exchanged glances of pure amazement. The baby who had been wailing just minutes ago now nestled peacefully against Mia's shoulder, her tiny chest rising and falling in a calm rhythm. Mia's humming drifted like a gentle breeze, filling the space with a hush that felt almost sacred. Oliver stared, scarcely believing what he saw. Relief coursed through him, loosening every tense muscle. He leaned back, a slow exhale escaping his lips. The ache behind his temples began to fade, replaced by something warm and humbling. This shy young stranger had succeeded where all his wealth, gadgets, and frantic efforts had failed. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice cracking with sincerity. I don't know how you did that." Mia looked up, cheeks coloring in the soft cabin light. "It's just an old lullaby my grandma used to sing," she said softly, as if embarrassed to admit it. She kept rocking gently, unwilling to disturb the fragile calm. The baby stirred slightly but remained asleep, her little fist uncurling to rest against Mia's sweater. A ripple of quiet admiration moved through the rows. A middle-aged woman smiled warmly, giving Mia a discreet thumbs up. A businessman who earlier shot irritated glances now murmured, "Impressive," under his breath. Even a flight attendant, balancing a tray of water glasses, paused to watch, her expression melting into something like awe. Oliver reached out, his hands hesitant as if afraid to break the spell. "May I?" he asked, gesturing toward his daughter. Mia nodded and gently transferred Lily back into her father's arms. The infant stayed asleep, sighing contentedly. "She's completely out," Oliver said, almost laughing with disbelief. He looked at Mia, his polished image of a powerful entrepreneur softening into that of a grateful father. "You have a gift, you know. Not everyone can calm a baby like that, especially on a plane full of strangers." Mia lowered her gaze, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I just wanted to help," she murmured. "Help?" Oliver shook his head with a quiet smile. "You saved this flight." As the cabin lights dimmed for the long stretch of the journey, a renewed sense of ease settled over the passengers. Conversations resumed in soft tones. Some even exchanged stories of their own parenting struggles. The earlier tension dissolved into a shared feeling of connection, an unspoken reminder of the power of small kindnesses. Mia returned to her seat, her heart still racing. She couldn't quite believe what had just happened. For someone who usually avoided attention, she'd stood up in front of dozens of strangers and somehow made a difference. She slipped back into 17A and finally let herself exhale, her book still resting unopened in her lap. About 20 minutes later, as the flight attendants began a quiet beverage service, Mia noticed something new on her tray table, a small white envelope, tucked neatly beside her water cup. Her brows knit in curiosity as she picked it up. On the outside, in careful handwriting, it simply said, "Thank you." Inside, she found a brief note on thick stationery. "Your kindness turned a stressful night into something unforgettable. You reminded me that not everything of value can be bought. Oliver Grant." Beneath the message lay a sleek business card embossed with his name and a private contact number. There was no mention of money, no implication of obligation, just an open door, an unspoken invitation to stay in touch if she ever wished. Mia smiled to herself, warmth blooming in her chest. She slipped the card into her book as a keepsake, not because he was famous or wealthy, but because the moment felt like something worth remembering. High above the ocean, the cabin lights glowed softly, and the plane carried on through the night. A billionaire father cradled his sleeping child, a shy teenager discovered a quiet bravery she hadn't known she possessed, and every passenger on board shared the subtle, lingering magic of a lullaby that needed no words at all.